First off, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've personally seen and heard enough non-spoiler reviews for this film. But if you've not seen the film, don't yet fret. I do intend to actually have a large portion of this review be spoiler-free, and I will obviously quite clearly and loudly let you know when that is about to change. I just, for a film like this, really need a spoiler section in it to make it feel like it's worth it. I've just read and seen so many reviews that say, I loved or I hated the ending, but I can't tell you why, and I personally just want to tell you why. And secondly, while I would assume that you and I probably have pretty similar rankings when it comes to all of Shyamalan's films, for example, I would assume anyways, that we would probably categorize The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs towards the top of that list, I've also got to admit to you that I tend to like and look more favorably upon a lot of his less loved films. For example, I love The Village. I find Lady in the Water to be charming and sweet, and I actually find a fair amount of merit in After Earth. Yes, The Happening is indeed bad, and The Last Airbender, well, let's just not talk about that film. Nonetheless, I did go into this film rather optimistic. Even while Shyamalan's full-on return to form has arguably only been for 2 films now, I still knew that it would be extremely unlikely that he would make a boring or forgettable film. The director just does not seem to have that in him. When it comes to the way that Shyamalan presents a narrative and presents that narrative in cinematic language, he has always, every time, done so in an extremely one-of-a-kind fashion. And I'll tell you straight up right now, with Glass, when it came to its themes, narrative, and visuals, he did not make a boring or forgettable film. And starting with the visuals, I am so thankful that Shyamalan actually had a limited budget on this film. Now, it's kind of hard to say what he would have done had he had a Last Airbender or After Earth budget, but my guess is, like those 2 films, it would have been notably less creative, inventive, and memorable. Now, this is a very, very minor spoiler and is actually shown in the trailers themselves, but 2 fight scenes was really all that I expected from this film, and I was actually quite happy that we only got 2, because you could just see the extra love and care that they got because of that. Shyamalan's shot composition, choreography, and editing were just so expertly done. When we live in an era where we can literally have a CGI double do anything, I just personally find it incredibly refreshing and uniquely exhilarating to watch actual humans, be they on cables, which are painted out later in post, or just wearing lots of hidden padding, actually running around and physically taking a real beating. And like all of his films, Shyamalan moved and blocked his camera in very, very distinct and often attention-grabbing ways, not just during the action sequences, but throughout. And while I'll freely admit that in some instances, it did feel like he was actually getting fancy for the sake of being fancy, because the director has always been so uniform in that style, and more importantly, because that style has communicated so clearly his unbridled joy over discovering something visually unique or exciting, like a way to contain what looks like 4 different panels from a comic book in one frame, I too have always connected with and enjoyed his approach. Now, if you've seen the trailers or seen Unbreakable or Split, this is nothing new, but I also found the use of color in this film to be extremely visually captivating and affecting, with Mr. Glass and everyone associated with him, like his mother, dressed in purple, with David Dunn and everyone associated with him, like his son, dressed in green, and with Kevin Wendell Crumb and everyone associated with him, like Casey Cook, dressed in yellow. Now, again, keeping things non-spoilery, let's start talking about the narrative just a little bit. Now, I've heard a number of people actually bemuse the fact that this wasn't more of a full-blown David Dunn Unbreakable sequel, one that focused more specifically on his journey and his arc. And still, I've heard others say how strange it was that the titular character got so little screen time and so few lines as compared to his co-stars. And I can't argue with that. If you're walking into this film looking for a full-fledged David Dunn character piece, you may well walk out disappointed. Personally, though, what I felt like this film was telling me with the amount of screen time that we got with David Dunn was that his greatest battle had already been fought and won in the first film, that being the reclaiming of his relationships with his wife and son and the taking on of the superhero mantle. And given how Shyamalan actually treated the... Hold up. Okay, for those of you that would like to avoid spoilers, now is the time to click away in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because I was about to say the way that they treated David Dunn's son, Joseph, in this film, making him kind of the guy in the chair for that character, I thought was kind of just the perfect sort of capstone for their relationship and what they'd already undergone in the previous film. And even while I personally could have done with just one more flashback between David and his wife, getting to hear or at least see her reaction to discovering that her husband was a superhero, I still loved the little touches that Shyamalan infused to pay off that relationship, like the simple kiss that David gave to his wedding ring towards the end of the film, which was revealed to be something that he still wore around his neck. Ultimately, though, when it came to the balance of the film, though it was indeed skewed in Kevin's direction just slightly, I thought that Shyamalan did a pretty great job actually utilizing all of the characters to tell a unique story with this film Glass, one that belonged to all of them. They were all being used to build to one point and one idea, one that was larger than all of them. And this, of course, is when we get into major spoilers, but the reveal that there was this super secret society out to mask the truth that superhumans actually existed, I thought was, well, great. Firstly, it actually kind of cleared up a question that I'd had since watching Unbreakable, which was if Mr. Glass was actually right and superheroes and supervillains actually do exist, why was David Dunn and he, Mr. Glass, the first ones to be recognized in the modern era? The answer now seems to be because this secret club? Okay, the answer seems to be that this secret club has been going around systematically and strategically silencing these people, telling them that they're not superheroes to go back to being normal, and if not, killing them. But honestly, that completely pales to the thematic ideas that the twists and turns expressed at the end of Glass. Thematic ideas that so perfectly tied into what had already been explored in Unbreakable and Split. Those being, what is honestly the merit of superheroes and supervillains? Why is it good that they existed? And what does the truth of their existence really bring to the rest of humanity? And the cool thing is the idea and the answer to those questions that Shyamalan posits in this film is actually the same answer that I've come to as far as the merits and goodness of the truly fictional comic book characters in our world. And that is they're meant to inspire and bring out the hero in all of us. And so the fact that Shyamalan was brave enough to actually kill all three of those characters and by the end only have them be inspiration to those that were left behind, I thought was just so bold, brilliant, and so stunningly powerful. And on top of that, the very bold declaration of the power of, no, not just belief, but the power of belief in the truth, I thought was very moving. Even so, Shyamalan didn't make a perfect film. I think one of the primary detractors for me from this film was that really until we got into that pink room, the one that we've all seen in the trailers with Mr. Glass, Kevin Wendell Crumb, and David Dunn kind of facing off against Ellie Staple, the character of Ellie Staple really posed no threat to what I or the characters already believed about themselves. Prior to that scene, and there was indeed a fair amount prior, nothing that she was saying was really coming anywhere close to convincing anyone that our lead characters didn't have the superpowers that we'd seen them display. Which just meant a lot of fairly repetitive, less dramatic than they could have been scenes to get there. Also, as much as I really did love the ending, there was just something slightly off and something slightly strange about the friendship between Mrs. Price, Casey, and Joseph. It was almost as if Shyamalan just wanted us to forget that Mrs. Price's son, Mr. Glass, had done a lot of horrible things and killed a lot of innocent people. When it was all said and done, and when it's all said and done with all Shyamalan films, this may sound absurd to a lot of people, but I tend to actually try and judge them based upon how well they would work without their 11th hour twists. And were we to, with Glass, have removed the club reveal and the revelation that Ellie Staple was a nefarious individual, the shock and power of David Dunn, Kevin Wendell Crumb, and Mr. Glass's deaths would have remained. And the beauty of seeing truth affect and inspire others to greatness would have remained just as clear and just as powerful. And for all these reasons, I will give the film a 4 out of 5 and a heart. I would still love to know what you guys thought of the film though, so definitely comment below and let me know. And I know he's got a lot of them, but if you could rank for me a few of Shyamalan's top films in your rankings, that would be a lot of fun. Finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.